Good evening. We are picking up where we left off. There are rocks everywhere, and I have forgotten most of the details. Oh, hey, a mushroom. Nice. Well, things are already going my way. Which really is, like, the nicest start I feel like you could ask for, reasonably. That said, I have totally forgotten, like, where I'm going and what I'm doing and what my goal is. I think I might be after, like, 3 things represented by these, TV screens. I wonder if riding the Yoshi is the correct call. Maybe I recall I was collecting hints for a puzzle. Okay, so in this one, somebody drowns. If that's meant to be a girl, I guess it's Princess Peach. Because that might just be like a generic figure, or it might be specifically a person in a dress. There's one over here of a thing getting set on fire, which I believe I've already done with Bowser. I think I'm trying to destroy this thing. Or like move it or what have you. Definitely easier, but more— whoops. I was gonna say, definitely easier, but more tedious to climb in 3D view. If I go like 15-30 minutes without making any meaningful progress, I might just look up a guide. Like, hey, what do I do next? Right, I'm going for like these things. It's coming back to me. I think I got the fire one already. And there's probably a specific order to it. Okay, so... sink underwater was another one. Well, that was easy. Now I just need to find the third tablet. Vegetables? I'm a fox, I don't need those. I can survive exclusively on a diet of chicken nuggets. Disregard my constant complaining about how much my stomach hurts. Granted, I did actually more or less get to the bottom of that, and it was not the chicken nuggets' fault. Thank goodness. I see a pipe in the background. And I wonder if perhaps I jump into this volcano. Okay, so it looks like Earth, Water, Fire is the order. I'm presuming that that's Earth. Imagine if this went by like modern 3D Mario rules, and every time you picked up a coin, you got a hit point. It's like, who needs consumables? Yes, I believe it was Earth, Water, Fire. If I were smart, I would go up and I would place the 2 tablets that I have already. This is where I found the water tablet, and as far as I can tell, there's nothing else there. I got the fire one by setting it on fire with Bowser. Looks like you presumably get the Earth one by running anti-clockwise around the Yoshi statue. So I will. I just need to remember where the Yoshi statue is. I think it's over here? It is a vertical-looking rock. At least from this angle. Here we are. Well, alright then. That was straightforward. Still not Earth. I feel like that's the kind of thing that I very reasonably could have gotten completely by accident. But I did. Oh well. Okay, Earth, Water, Fire. That wasn't too bad at all. I almost walked clean off the edge there. Earth, water, and fire. What? What? Hey, yo, thank you for the head taps. What? I'm getting nothing. So, you ignoring me? Or was that a yes? Better try one more time. Please talk to me. Okay. Nice, sounds good. Been a while since I heard voices. Been a while since I talked. Gotta tell people how you feel or they don't know. Gotta talk or nobody hears you. So listen, weird question. You got a motto or what? Whisper it to me, huh? What's my favorite word? Explode. That's kind of short, isn't it? Not too good a motto. Give me something longer this time. Okay, so it's gotta be like Ollie. Routine is a 7-letter word. Kitsune is also a 7-letter word. I just thought of a word that I can't say on stream, but that's also 7 letters. 8-letter word. Nuggets is 7 letters. Why is everything I love 7 letters? Wait, I know what we gotta do here. Much like the last time I was presented with a dialogue box like this in a Paper Mario game. At the time, I was incredibly sleep deprived. Oh yeah, that's perfect. I am loving that. Real good word and real good timing. It really got me right there, in the heart. And on that note, hang on a quick sec. Piece cake. So yeah, that's your motto. Words you live by, right? Right on, good stuff. Feels like I know you now. What really drives you? Gotta say, it's inspiring. Haven't felt like this in a while. Feels kind of like when I first became a pixel. I gotta get on board this good feeling train. I'm sticking with you. Okay, so I guess the implication that, like, all of the pixels were people who, like, had their souls processed. Because that's kind of horrific. The hammer pixel called Kudge has joined your group. Swing that hammer to do some serious damage. You can even break giant yellow blocks. Yeah, feeling good, yeah. I got a ton of pent-up energy, let me tell you. Oh, I don't even swing the pixel, I just magically manifest a hammer. Well, alright then. How might one get up there? Princess Peach, of course. Let's do that. Oh, Stone Buzzy. I just thought of another word, but it's way too long. Do you want to save your progress? Yes. After repelling O-Chunks, Mario and company followed the Floro-Sapiens underground. Was the hideout of the Floro-Sapiens just up ahead? Wow, it's dark, and an arrow. Hey, who just kicked me? Sorry, all me. Our heroes followed the long, dark corridor, listening to echoes of their own voices. As they groped their way along, the light at the end of the tunnel grew brighter. They had finally arrived at the inner sanctums of the Floro-Sapiens. The Cragnons kidnapped from downtown of Crag had to be around somewhere. A crag in the dark. I do like the kind of gemstone aesthetic they're going for here. I've always been a sucker for gemstones. Sparkly, shiny things. Coming to you live from the foul darkness that the Floro-Sapiens call home. Lesser Cragnons would weep softly. No one has set foot in this cave and emerged alive. But some make history with sheer gall and willpower, and Flint Cragley is such a man. Cragley ho! Into the Floro-Sapiens Cave of Doom, a Flint Cragley Cragtronic adventure. No, wait a second, that'll never play well in the sticks. How about Cragley ho! Taste danger, Flint Cragley versus a craginated mummy in Floro-Sapien Central. I wonder if that'll test well with the weekend audience. Those Cragnons are fickle. Excuse me, sir? Cragley ho! Suddenly out of the cave, mists, mysterious, slavering creatures lurched into view. Did they hope to dine on filet of Cragley? Would our hero meet their mandibles? Tune in after this brief commercial break to witness the torrid conclusion. Great, cut, print, rapid. Now what are you, dolt swat? What are you doing down here? Huh? You're on a quest to find a treasure called the Pure Heart? Spectacular, just fabulous, all-time coincidence, that's what this is. Just great to meet fellow adventurers, really it is. I'm ecstatic about this. Listen, call me Flint. I'm a heck of a guy to know, best crag trotter of our time. You may know me from Flint Cragley Crag Trotter, which airs weekly on Cragvision. That's why I pretended to be kidnapped. I'm filming another epic show. Unfortunately, my idiot crew wandered off somewhere. So unprofessional. I turned away for a second and they vanished into the foul blackness of this cave. The worst part is they have the key that'll get me deeper into this infernal abyss. You there, if you run into my crew, tell them I'm waiting and stomping impatiently. Pure adventure personified, thanks you kindly. If we run into them, fine. This man is literally a rabbit. If you see my crew, tell them that Flint Cragley grows more agitated by the second. My Hollow Knight senses are tingling. I made lots of money, but like, to what end? Thought I might have seen some bricks there. I, in fact, did not. Oh, you know what? Maybe this is a tippy thing. It does not appear to be a tippy thing. I guess that's just a bunch of bonus cash for people who are paying attention. A subgroup that I'm notoriously a member of. Oh, I just killed an innocent guy, presumably. So what you're saying is, I can kill the innocent people in this game. For once, I can play the villain as intended. Pardon me, I had to sneeze. My apologies. Ooh, minecart. Start the cart right? Sure. It does not appear that I can interact with the cart ride in any way. So, what's this about? Am I supposed to ride the cart here somehow, or is this adequate? Do I have a pixel that lets me roll myself up? Not in the way that I would want to for this. I blow this up. Does not appear to be so. And I poke it with Tippy. Does not appear to be so. Okay, so presumably I either find some way to like what's the word? I find some way to like, oh hey, shovel. And I has. Either I find some way to like redirect the track, or I find some way to like roll myself up in a tube, like that one ability from Passenger Door. That Krakon has been brainwashed with a strange sprout by the Florosapiens. 10 hit points is 1, attack... Max HP is 10, attack is 1, they'll attack any intruder. They are so tough, but if you stomp one, your score will go down. They are usually found in the mine, looking for gems for King Crocus. It had to be done. There was no reasoning with them. Oh, hold on, I can switch the ride perspective. That's kinda cool, actually. I wonder if that's how I get around to the other side. Alright. What happens when I hit this part? Well, alright then. Makes about as much sense as anything else, I suppose. Perish. Did not expect that thing to take a bomb, not gonna lie. Mysterious power makes you jolly. Start the wheel of fun. I like that Merluvi just essentially rewarded me for destroying an innocent. Now, this is all very entertaining and all, but like... yeah, surely there's... something productive here, given how relatively difficult it was to access. Whoa, where in Crag you guys from? Serious, who are you, brah? You're a part of Flint's crew, are you not? He's been looking for you. Well, you know where Director is? Oh, that where he is. Thanks. Hornfell's head back now. But first, you see other crew Kragnods with little Sprout on top of head? Yeah? Laura Sapien's using Sprouts to mind control Kragnods. They see you, they attack. Don't let guard down, bro. Oh, don't worry, I won't. Frag you later. Okay, so I guess this is just like another branching thing where like I find the crew members in like various places and then come back to Flynn. When I was a child, I always really wanted to ride in a minecart. Also because they presented them like roller coasters in like every piece of media. Clearly I didn't grow up with DKC. No, I did not, and thank goodness for that, because I did not like that game. Oh, Shroom Shake. I might be in purgatory. Here we go. Facing games determined by which ones you have access to as a kid. I can't deny that, because one of my favorite games is Link to the Past. On the other hand, I feel like most people who like play Link to the Past later in life are like, wow, this game's really good. And most people who play DKC are like, wow, this isn't. But maybe I'm just biased, who knows? With the slow shroom, you can watch Mario get his butt kicked in slow motion. Ooh, Bitcoin. Okay, bigger rock there. When in doubt, explosion. Once again, doesn't appear to be anything but a bunch of money. Which I guess I can't complain about, per se. It's just not very exciting. Sap soup. Maybe we can just walk through this thing and smash this thing. Oh, another one of these. Ooh, loop-de-loop. We do love a loop-de-loop. Or 2. Or 3. Or 4. Or 5. Well, that certainly happened. Six too many, they clearly thought so. Hey, you not mind controlled? You escaped from processing center, brah? Monzo may be out to take director there. Maybe Sprout on head mellow him out. You're one of that crackly gentleman's crew members. He's requested your return. What? You know director? So that where he was? Oh, he told Monzo, wait here, but Monzo that he forgot 1 second later. Job of Monzo really lame. Thanks, brah. Monzo heading back now. Oh, these crystals are pretty. I want them. Can I take them home with me? Heal Mango. Well, R.I.P. Mango. The plan was to eat it. Unfortunately, the best laid plans often go awry. A Spania card. There goes another mango. Oh, another ghost room. R.I.P. Ghost Room. Now, Flint didn't actually tell me how many people are on his crew. So I don't know if those two were it, or if I should keep looking. Let's do Cut Ride in 2D, I suppose. I wonder if the placement of the loop-to-loops and gaps are like a hint or a reference to anything. Or if they just did it to pad the playtime. It's not gonna lie, this feels a lot like padding. Okay, perhaps I will try breaking these blocks. I got some health out of it. I see a thing up there, so presumably there's a ladder right here. I'm gonna assume that it's like rule of 3 for the crewmates, so there'll probably be one up here and then that's it. Though maybe it isn't, who knows? Maybe it's like the carpenters from Ocarina of Time, where there's like 5 of them. Okay, that was not productive. Or unless you're counting the boss, I might have been thinking of like them as a set, but for the purposes of retrieving them, it's 4. R.I.P. Horsetail. Imagine if one of the pixels that Mario got was just like gun, the gun pixel. His journey would be a lot simpler. DLC quest. I actually played DLC quest. That one thing like right at the beginning where it's like you can grind 10,000. I did that. In a miraculous turn of events, I was reunited with my faithful camera Cragnons. But there was no time for celebration. We had to swoop to the aid of the kidnap. With danger nibbling our heels, we ventured deeper into the Forbidden Cave. To do so, we used the key to the last unopened door in the Forsaken Labyrinth. So, you do have the key, right? Let me grab that. Was that you cragging me? You never gave key. Oh, really? What? Key? Yes, genius, a key. Wait, don't tell me you don't have it either. Yeah, brah. Had key, but... Ah, yes, so you do have it. Good show, yes, give it here quickly now. No, brah. Had key, but not have key. You lost it. A tragic crew blunder ruins Cragley. Have the gods of adventure forsaken us? Nah, brah. See, Cragley say you lose this, so Cragley hold on to it. Cragley got key, brah. Preposterous. If such a claim were true, there would be evidence in my pocket, which there isn't. Huh? Cragley, ho! A miracle struck. As if by magic, the long-lost key had returned to my pocket. The key defied Cragnon comprehension. It was a place of purest miracles. Lucky turn of events, finding that key. I'm sure everybody contributed somehow. Now, onward. We must make our way to the last unopened door to the horrid depths. If my research is correct, and it always is, then this key should open that door. Of course, through the door may lie a trap that will devour us all. Ha ha ha. What's that? You say you want to open the door no matter what may lie in wait? Tremendous, such bravery. I was planning on opening it myself, of course, but since you seem so passionate... Not that I'm afraid or anything, don't be ridiculous. I mean, that's laughable. As a fellow crag trotter, I know the heady thrill of the hunt. I'll yield to your lead. We'll head down first and await you by the door. Come down when you're ready. See you in 2 ticks. It definitely is a step above Colorado, but like... in terms of being a step above, Colorado's more of a speed bump. we do be loop-de-looping. I wonder what force was propelling that cart. Hope Mario's stomach holds his shrooms properly. I mean, Mario's got like a cast iron stomach. Ooh, hello. We take those. And then we hold down right for a bit. Now that they don't have this Bowser, probably not. There's a thing there I should smash with my hammer. What might be found in here? Into the chapter. Okay, is there anything off to the right? It's Super Paper Mario, so probably not. Like, I'm not gonna find like a badge or anything cool over here. Yeah, it's just a fake out. Oh well, it is what it is. Actually, maybe there was like a tippy thing there, but I don't care enough to go check. End of chapter. You want real danger? How about my duel with the foul Rainbow Zilla? As the heroes descended into the Floro Caverns, Flint Cragley entertained them all. Boss, Cragnon's heard that story 255 times, brah. You making my crag hurt. Brah, the amount of time we weren't tied up than at 256 times. Mario and Co. glanced over at the weary faces of Flint's crew as they delved deeper. But like Grill, was it a ray of hope from the pure heart or an evil illusion? Very specific number. That is the highest number that can be represented by a byte. The Menace of King Crocus. Cragley how? We plodded on, traipsing over all manner of beasts that gnashed fangs at us. But then, no, a sight too horrible to believe appeared before our eyes. Boss, nothing happened yet, brah. I know that, you cretin. The sight too horrible to believe is still up ahead. We're going to look for it now. Come on, move. Well, wait up, brah. Boss, no, Monster not want to get left behind, brah. You know, I'm a programmer. I've got a keenly developed sense for, like, powers of two. I'm like, hold on a second. He would survive live television? No, he'd thrive there. It is not a place that people go to be treated well. Oh, do I need to have a sprout to get through this? I presume I need a sprout to get through this. This is used for inspection. You have to meet certain requirements to get through. Do I actually get Cragley infected and then follow him through? Because that'd be kind of funny if so. Oh, there is a tiny pipe there. Yeah, I'm guessing that, like, I get a pixel that shrinks me, I get Cragley infected, and then I, like, hitch a ride in his pocket, or something. Processing center. It won't open. Please insert card key. I know what I'm looking for? Yes. Have to find a way to kill Cragley. Oh, hey, big button. Mysterious power makes you jolly. Start the wheel of fun. Okay, presumably I find something to put on this switch, because I'm not fat enough. Despite Thoreau's initial assessment of my girth. There aren't that many places I could check, is the thing. Like, this feels like what I should be doing, but... I can't seem to stomp it down. Press hammer. Maybe. If the hammer works, but the literal, like, heavy weight doesn't, I was gonna be a bit upset. Alas, it was not hammer. So on the one hand, I don't have to get upset about, like, illogical inconsistency thingies, but it also means I don't know how to proceed. I suppose all I can do is continue to poke around. I am seeing tiny pipes, so again I presume that I find a pixel that shrinks me. Maybe I can, like, go up and talk. I either Crackly or some of his goons into standing on the switch for me. Hey, level up. Kind of surprised that I got a level, given that I've been actively killing every innocent person that I've come across. Not gonna complain though. I don't think I can actually get back up. Huh. Maybe I was gonna say, maybe I slip behind that because I see that it's a little bit off the wall. Does not appear to be the case. Maybe this is like a tippy thing. Annoying if so, because pointing her at the screen pauses the game. So I can't just like run along holding it pointed at the screen. If you need to use her, I know how Tippy works, don't worry. That's a switch. Get on top of it to activate it. But this type of switch needs a certain amount of weight to be activated. Oh, I just had an idea, but I need a living victim for it to work. And this pipe gives me an infinite number of them, so that's probably the solution. Come with me. I'd say if you want to live, but you're not getting out of this alive. There we go. That's an item. Dangerous poison shroom. What are the implications of that? Is it a thing that I like use on somebody else, or is it a thing that I consume myself? Presumably I consume it myself and it poisons me. Skull out, skull on the wall there. Thank you for the hydration. And the rotation. Ow, my bones. Ow, ow, you're really hitting me while I'm down. Alright, you know what? I'm gonna take a 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. Not gonna lie, it's really annoying when my remote dies. Or not dies, but like disconnects. Because for some reason it does not like to reconnect. Had to kind of wrestle with it there for a bit. Oh right, you're the one that, like, duplicates. What's that on the wall say? There are letters written on the wall here. Behind the skull. That's what it says. Yeah, that's either a tippy thing or something else. A skull? That's a wall painting that somebody did. Tippy, you yourself were like, ah yes, skull? That is a thing. Oh, you know what? I got a pixel for this. I'm surprised that I remembered that. Not usually my forte. Now I just gotta find that locked door again. I'm also kind of starting to crave a pizza. Not like a full thing, but like a slice. The consequences of not eating dinner. You get hungry. Perhaps a little treat after stream. Shoutouts to pizza places, they're open until like 3 in the morning. Like, that sounds kind of miserable to like work there, but honestly not the worst hours I've worked personally. It suits some people, have hours like that. I actually did fairly well for myself when I had like a proper like night shift position, like 11 to 8 kind of deal. Or 11 to 7 I think it was. Anyway. Ah, found us. Gabbro thought this was good hiding spot since Key was lost, brah. Yes, this is unexpected. But so is a storm of rain. Such is the way of things. There are no absolutes. What do you do, brah? Come, be at peace. Calm your raging inner sea. Let us meditate on this. You're probably right, brah. Evil bras, you take Gabbro. Gabbro, give up. But her, do not hurt Pixel. But you... No, let Gabbro speak, brah. You kept Gabbro company. You helped Gabbro hide. Gabbro owe you big, brah. Big debt for Pixel. Gabbro's time ending, but Gabbro really want you to live free. Come now, ease your mind. Let me muffle the wails of your frightened soul. Do not be hasty and fear. Look closer. That is not one of the Floro-Sapiens. What? Who are you, bras? Did you come to save Gabbro? Well, I guess. This is interesting. Just like Flint Cragley, you've avoided falling under the control of the Floro-Sapiens. What? Flint here too? Gabbro, huge Cragley fan. Cragley do something, brah. Cragley save us all. Well, isn't that welcome news? Why don't you go find Flint? Or I must bid you farewell. What? Why? You not come with Gabra? Humans and pixels, or Cragnons and pixels for that matter, shouldn't linger long together. Only heroes who know how to utilize the pixels properly can travel with them. Please, heed my words now. It's best for you this way. Oh, Crag. Come now, let me assist you in your departure from here. Let your aura shrink. When it diminishes, you can return to the village where the one you seek awaits. Thank you, Great Pixel Bra. Gabra, not forget you. Wow. Farewell, Weeping Cragnon. Go frolic beneath the sun where you are meant to live. Rain still falls in my heart. The taken souls cry out. Why do they cry such tears? We must stop this torrent. Fate brought us together. Great hero of 1500 years. Now you must take me there. The deep, dark underbelly of the earth. Tiny Pixel named Dottie has joined your group. Dottie can miniaturize you, and you can enter small spaces and avoid being noticed. Let us go, before the rain of tears becomes a flood, before disaster breaks. Now you want a mini fox reading? I would need to spend more time practicing talking in a pitch like that. It's actually kind of hard on my throat. Life-size Ariel? I really like the energy of Mini Mario here. Mario went from Golden Retriever to Chihuahua. And you're not wrong. Mysterious okay. I feel like I keep getting the shroom shake. Oh, we put it in at the top even though I... Okay, whatever. Okay. Immediate replacement, can't complain. Shrink me, Dottie, please and thank you. You got the card key. Please insert card key. Oh, these things looked kind of like small doors from the side. Like iron doors rather than like, I don't know, wooden doors. There can't be that many pixels left in the game. I am running out of, like, room. Granted, I suppose the Mega could just scroll. I appear to have been slowed. Bowser, oh, you're right. He's just walking menacingly. Oh, a Florocragnian card. Was he too tall? I don't think he was too tall. I think he was just slowed down. And the slow wore off just as I switched to Peach. Like, I'm pretty sure I can make that jump now. Yeah, easy. Haha, so at long last you got to play like late sleeping toddlers. Dementio and Ochunks. Ah, do you not tire of collecting those worn-out, tiresome pure hearts? I am not violent by nature, you know. I prefer to settle this peacefully, in fact. Say, for instance, you wish to go back to your world. I could do that for you. Oh, please. You know what you smell like, weirdo? Beer. Stop crying and fight. Haha, so it must be. Shall we begin? Haven't you learned? No matter how often we fight, it'll end the same. My, aren't you lucky? Same fight, same outcome. You are precisely correct. And that is why... Broccoli! Lovely green hat, wouldn't you say? Huh? Well, I don't fight veggies. Dear Ochunks, so strong, it's so very dim. A child could learn his attack patterns. As such, I requested a few sprouts from my acquaintance to liven him up a touch. I call the by Cabbage. Don't be shy, Cabbage, introduce yourself. Cabbage! Haha, simply adorable. Now remember, kids, eat your vegetables to grow big. Except in this case, a veggie will eat you. Have fun now. Ciao. Asparagus. Well, alright then. Rude. Only there were an easier way to do this. But... Broccoli... Hey, what in gravy am I doing in here? And what are you doing in here as well? The game is actually, frozen. It's not responding to input. When was my last save? Yeah, huh. Alrighty then. me just do a little reset. I said we do a little reset. We smack some hardware. Oh, here we go. Oh, I get the picture. You don't want to challenge the new Improved Chunks. You got pepper in your pants, I'll give you that. But this time you will get ruined. Uh-oh. Mibella's growling like a starving dog. Warrior rule number 1, never fight on an empty stomach. 'Tis madness. Sorry, but we gotta call it a day. Can't go bucking the warrior rules. Next time, though, you're done. Chunks away. Look, the sprout from his head is the same as on the glorified Cragnons. It looks as though it's nearly dead, however. What happens if you wear this sprout? It's locked up again. Hold on. This is bothersome. Any chance we have a battery side? No. Probably not. It's just being really annoying is what it's doing. If this keeps throwing a fit, though, I might try that, like replacing the batteries. I really don't think it is that, though. We are? Yeah, like it says at the bottom, like full charge. I basically only use this Wiimote during streams, so I don't think it would have died. I'll wear it. Alright, that's funny. You didn't turn into cabbage. That's nice, I guess. This could come in handy. To put on or take off the sprout, go to important things on the menu screen. If the Wiimote batteries are dying and just not reporting themselves correctly, I do have a replacement set. Worst case scenario, I can just switch tracks to Noita or something. Haha! If they could beat that model of Chunks, then they are coming along quite nicely. Perhaps they really are the ones I've waited for all this time. Haha! I should prepare myself as well. So much to do, so precious little time. Now this is where the people were stored. Okay, yes, we're on the right track. We save just in case we have to smack things a little bit harder. Oh, hey, tiny pipe. Now, what might be down here? I'm glad that using other pixels doesn't impose the same kind of like cooldown that being flipped does. And we get a heal. Oh, nice. I am very small, but I got a sprout on my head. It's like a Final Fantasy XIV reference. I should probably take the sprout off, just in case the villain can like reinvigorate it and use it to like take direct control of me. How about if a player was I as a sprout? I was actually very good at the game. 14 was not my first MMO. Ooh, Chinese. I want. Give. Oh, they're flat. Like, there was plenty of, like, Final Fantasy-specific stuff that I just did not know. But in terms of, like, raw aptitude, I did fairly well for myself, I'd like to think. I suspect that this is a puzzle of some description. That, or it's just hit all the switches once. Oh, whoops, wrong button. It worked out, though. Yoink. Okay, so there's probably some kind of pattern to this. First things first, even though the ground here isn't cracked, can I blast this open? Yes, I can. Do the paintings reveal secrets? What a strong Florosapien. Powerful, threatening, and very passionate. This picture is newer than the others. This Florosapien is younger than the others, more delicate, maybe even weak. As a Florosapien girl, by Florosapien standards, she's lovely. That's a fancy picture of a Florosapien. Their king, perhaps? He looks so strong. It's a really old painting. The floor under the painting is cracked as well. Thank you for the shell, I suppose. Okay, so as far as I can tell, my options are blue and red. Are there more options than that? Yes, there are. Okay, never mind. This is borderline not a puzzle. So black here. White here, which I presume I'll reach if I hit this thing twice more. There we go. Set this one to blue, then the other one's already red. So, 3 times. Ooh-wee woo! Where oh where are my pretties? Pretties, beautiful things. Ooh-wee, bring them to me, more. Ooh, what is this hideous clashing thing? Are you King Crocus? Ooh-wee oh, so you must be the intruders I've heard so much about. Well, I will not forgive the great trashing of my beautiful kingdom. No, you. Thus you are warned. King Crocus, you must release the Pragnons you've enslaved. Never. Their sturdy bodies make them such fine workers. Exquisite. I need them to dig up more gems so I can build up a jeweled palace. Ooh-wee. Now, honestly, I get where he's coming from. Why, how positively horrid. Release them this instant. Trash is garbage no matter how you dress it. This world is made for beauty. And if you need some proof, then have a look at this. It's the pure heart. I can hear it in your voice. You want it so badly you can barely think, Seems we all seek beauty. How dare you take a high horse over me? Don't compare us to you. We're nothing like you. No, I'm very similar. I'm not gonna pretend I'm not. Your blabber hurts my ears, and your smell is wilting me. I can stand you no longer. I rarely stoop to such things, but I'll destroy you myself. Consider it an honor. Ooh-wee-oh, here I come. That's King Crocus. He leads the Florosapiens and loves beautiful things. 50 hit points to attack. He attacks with his head like other Florosapiens. I don't think you can damage him when his face is close off like that. Using to throw to grab stuff, then jumping onto him works pretty well, though. This is fine. Oh, my bones. Oh, my other bones. Perhaps I should consume an item. Okay, it might actually be that my Wiimote is dying. Hold on. Okay, yeah, my Wiimote's dying. Hold on. Bear with me. Where did I put those other batteries? Here we are. I didn't take these out of the package, so, please bear with me. I didn't expect that it would, die this quickly. They only lasted, like, 10 hours. Like, cumulative. Okay, I literally just set down the back panel for this. Where did it end up? Like, actually, my reach is not that long. Where did it end up? I'm actually baffled. I've misplaced my, I've misplaced the back cover to my Wiimote. I literally just took it off. Tracking something at the all day? No, but, nah. Alright, I guess I'm just doing this with no back cover. And I gotta... reconnect it, which is annoying. There we go. Alright. I have no clue where the back cover could have gone. Like... Actually, where did it go? Did I drop it on the ground by mistake? This is actually gonna bother me for so long until I find it. Anyway. So sorry about the delays. You fell on the floor and so sore? Entirely possible. I'm wearing earphones that, block background noise. So it's entirely possible that, like, a clatter happened and I did not hear it. Beautiful. Even as I wrote, I am beautiful. King Crocus. What? Whoa, what did you guys do, huh? We have defeated your king. Get over it. Hey, shut up. You don't get it at all. King Crocus was awesome. He totally thought of his people first, man. And you wilted him. What? What are you talking about? Water, man. I'm talking about water. The Kragnons were polluting our water. Listeners were tossing trash into the river. We had to drink that crud. That dirty water was what... That dirty water was what... That dirty water was what drove our king bonkers, don't you get it? So then... Oh. Of course, I knew it all along. Raggly ho. Emergency special report from the Floral Front Lines. Environmental pollution drives Floral Sapiens mad. Whither will they rampage? So the villagers throwing garbage in the river was the reason for this whole thing? Well, I tried to tell those guys that my thoughts were too far ahead of their time. This played well with Green Kragnon crowd. Ratings explode, bruh. It's like Crags on Ice meets Baron von Crackington. Yes, once my fellow villagers see this, they'll surely realize the error of their ways. Once the words of Flint Cragley reach them, they'll throw garbage no more. Yeah, Waterman. I mean, it's easily our most precious treasure, you know what I mean? We promise not to dirty our water, and we'll just chill down here and be cool. And we'll totally take those sprouts off your villagers' noggins too, man. Sounds like a fine way to keep the peace in the land. Keep those promises, folks. That was a rather unexpected turn. I mean, we can't really get upset at a green Aesop. Wailing on our king aside, you guys are totally heroes. You should take this. One of our earliest kings received this to safeguard until the hero's arrival. Our people have kept that promise for like 1500 years or something crazy like that. I'm sure our wilted king here would be stoked that this duty got done. I'm just looking for the thing. Whatever, I'll look for it later. You got a pure heart. It is bothering me an unreasonable amount. Men of true grit witness live what others can only see through crag vision. That is what moves me to travel into the belly of the beast week after week. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, Craggly Ho! Having wrapped their latest shoot, Flint and the crew went back to the downtown of Crag. Mario and friends clutched the 6th pure heart as they walked back towards Slipside. Our heroes had taken a new step toward overturning the prophecy of destruction. Save your game? Yes. Raise your chunks in the air as the most debonair man of men strides into the room. Springing forth from his lair as his foes all despair, for Bleck be the name of their doom. Wow, that's our Blecky Bleckity-doo. Yeah, something Bleck. That's the guy who says... Woo? Gosh, oh Chunks, quit it. You're breaking windows. What are you yelling about? All that? Yeah, I just had O'Chunks home with a nice motivational tune. And as punishment for getting beat by that hero again, I'm making him sing it 1,000 times. 1,000 times? Gosh, you're even more evil than I thought. Hey, but enough chatting. So where's the Count, huh? I want to see him. He hasn't called me to go do anything and I'm getting so bored. Hey, Cow. My destructive little friend is all gassed up and itching to get back in action. Yes, Brobot is begging me to take him out to say the word and I'll roll out. Yeah, great enthusiasm, but let's shelve the robot action plan for now, okay? The thing is, the Count kinda left specific orders for us to stand by, got that? No way, we're just supposed to wait here for that big mean hero to come get us? So the Count doesn't need my services? Excellent, I'll just be off then. You go nowhere, we wait, it's the Count's direct order, his word is absolute. Be a good little minion and do not move until told, okay? Thanks. But I'm bored. And Brobot craves his daily smash. I can't just loiter here, there's no action. Haha. Hard to stay still when you're pine for sweet vengeance, isn't it? Dementio. The Count's orders are all absolute, completely without exception, yes? We shouldn't even dare to think about a secret sneak attack. Perish the thought. Defeating the hero would please the Count greatly, but we must follow orders. Oopsie, I just remembered something real important that I gotta do. Back in a jiffy. Yeah, I've got to go deflavorize the robot's flavorizer. I'll return once everything's up to code. Later, Dementio. Haha. My, isn't that something? I do believe that I should be moving on as well. Look, Timpani, the stars are beautiful, aren't they? There's a tradition in my village. We believe that wishes on stars come true. Oh, is that so? In that case, we better get wishing, don't you think? I don't need to wish anymore. Huh? I already got my wish. Now, I have everything that I need right here. Timpani, aren't you cold? Not at all. I'm very warm. Can we stay like this? Just a little longer? Tippy. What? What's the matter, Tippy? You seem a little out of it there. Well, didn't you just hear something? I'm guessing that Timpani was Tippy's non-pixel form. No? Alright then. It's just that, for a second I thought I'd remembered something very important. And Count Bleck was like, but you can never replace the one I lost, so he's probably her partner. The void, it looks as though it's gotten bigger. We need to open the door to the next world quickly. Let's hurry. That'll be in Flopside. And... Actually, wait, no, I got the, Aha, you're back. I got the shrinking thing so I can go get that one, thing that's by the guy that sells things. Have you seen the sky lately? The void continues to grow larger. I imagine that some worlds have already started to decay. I wonder how long our dear Flipside will be spared. The Light Prognosticus doesn't say anything about how long we have. The Light Prognosticus was only written to counteract the Dark One. As such, it's not truly prophetic, so it's hard to say how long we really have. And yet, I feel confident in saying that we do not have much time at all. Well, we can only go forward now. We can't just wait for all worlds to end now, can we? Of course, you're right, my dear. I received a message from Noram recently. It seems that somebody on the outskirts of Flopside has spotted a heart pillar. As you're no doubt seeking the next heart pillar, that is a good place to start. I will go back to the Light Prognosticus to look for clues. Alright, so first things first, I want to check out, the small thing. By the guy that sells things. Names I don't remember. Unless the goldfish is in the way, and needs to be killed. Wait, hold up. What? I don't think that was there before. That's a goldfish. He's the cute fish that the boy on the third floor loves. He seems happy to have a larger area to swim in. It's much better than the bowl. Oh, and I hear his name is Captain Gills. I don't recall, was that skeleton there before? Greetings, Sing Slim. What you got for me? Gold leaf sounds interesting, but not interesting enough to experiment with. Wasn't there before when Captain Gill's in? That's great, I like that. What's in here? Hey, and welcome to the teeny tiny food store at Itty Bits. Sorry I can't show you my face, but I have my reasons, which I won't be telling you. So, first time here? Well hey, thanks for finding us. What we specialize in here is cooking ingredients. Our shop is small, but we stand tall by our products. What can I get you today? Cake mix, big egg, and honey jar. Interesting. Well, that is concurrently cute and useless. Much like myself. Oh, thank you for the head tats. I appreciate them. To Flopside. I wonder if there's a more convenient way to get to Flopside, and I just don't remember it. Because that does sound like something that I would do, is forget something important like that. Okay, Flopside outskirts. I should look for stuff that I can do now that I can be small. Smaller than normal, rather. I wonder if I can blast this open. Okay, there is water there. A hole will open in the sky? Haha, old news. I caught that scoop already. Thanks to our fine wordsmith, our magazine is a huge hit. We can't match the man. I'm so happy I can't sit still. Ah, it's the spot. Coffee black, the only way to drink coffee. Come on in, hang loose. This is the beverage area underground, the over there. I'm the owner of this pad, the name's Carson. So, okay, good to see you, etc. Listen, in my line of work I hear gossip. Even gossip I don't give a hoot about. But who knows, somebody might care about this stuff if it's somebody's you. So, okay, if you ever want to talk, you know where to find me. In this spot. For just a few coins, I'll tell you some interesting stories. I'm not even kidding. In fact, I once applied to work as a bartender. And they were considering me, but they ultimately passed me over because I didn't have prior experience working a bar. Hi there, I'm Flan, the map chap. I sell the hidden mysteries of the world here. Are you into maps or what? Because this chap is. All these maps I sell, they got great pictures. Pictures of treasures. Each map shows you where to go, and if you find the treasure, it's yours. What do you think? I mean, that's cool, right? You're here, so buy one. Do it, pick a map. Oh, goodness gracious. Map run runs 20 coins. So, like, how does this work in practice? Presumably I blow that spot up. What have we here? Hey, and welcome to the teeny tiny food store, Itty Bits. Real good to see you. What'll it be today? Fresh pasta, power steak, and smelly herb. Okay, so I haven't found the outskirts. This would be so much easier if I had, like, a memory that worked. But I don't. Such is the tragedy of Fox. I'll just keep wandering around until I find it, I suppose. There are only so many places in the world, and if I just go down the list, I'll find it eventually. Both the heart pillar and the missing back panel to my Wiimote. Ah, the welcome mat of Welderberg is always lying at the ready. You are coming here often, yeah? You are not having the job, making the money? But that is neither in the here nor in the there. I'm inspected here, yeah? I'm thinking I can make the pipe to Black Tower's base. You are covering the 100 coins for construction, yeah? We are having the deal? Yes. This is the good thing, yeah? I'm getting started, you are staying out of the way. This pipe is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You are using it whenever, yeah? Young people are always rushing through the life, always looking to the ahead. Well, I am going. It's me, I'm young people. By Fox standards. Yeah, so if this is like the other one, I've got to find, like, the other entrance to there. Then I can open it up. it's the outskirts, it's probably just off to the side, actually. I just have to be on the right height. Like that, yeah. There's a guy here. Presumably at this point he will create a shortcut between flip side and top side. That's my guess. Ah, another great day for Wildeberg. Working in the sunshine just feels so good, yeah? This old man is happy. But that is neither in the here nor in the there. I'm inspected here, yeah? I'm thinking I can make the pipe leading to flip side. You're recovering the 300 coins for construction, yeah? Sure. Worth it. This is the good thing, yeah? I'm getting started, you are staying out of the way. This is gonna be such a trip. Like, imagine if somebody was just like, yeah, I just built a door, goes to the mirror dimension. Wise people are always being more efficient. You made the wise decision. Well, I am going. Like, oh yeah, there is like a parallel world with somebody who's like your equal and opposite, and it's kind of horrifying. But like, now you can go and talk to her. Okay, I can smash that with a hammer. And there's a floating pure heart thing right here, so presumably Tippy reveals that. That's a heart floating in the air. It looks like the pure heart, but what is it? Tippy, that's your job. Right, hammer it is. To the hero. Have you forgotten already? Feeling stumped? Try flipping. I am literally flipped right now, but thank you for the input, I suppose. I think I see a little mini door underneath that hammer thing. Mini Mario dealing full damage is kind of terrifying. Imagine like a sapient bullet. That's essentially what these guys are dealing with at this point. And there's the heart pillar. Wonderful. Only 2 to go by the looks of it. At the Duel of the 100, the hero will meet with dark powers of purest chaos. Duel of the 100, is that Pit of 100 Trials? If you fall to the 100, the Chaos World grows and the Purity Heart fades. And as that happens, the hero will fall to the world where all games are ended. that's in the section of the Light Prognosticus that I just deciphered. It seems to suggest that if you fail to pass these duels, all worlds will be ruined. And apparently your lives will be lost along with the Purity Heart. I know what I have just shared with you might only serve to discourage you. I still must send you forth, however. It saddens me that I can do nothing else. So, like, did he just tell me to do the Pit of 100 Trials, or is that just like a generic playing the game kind of thing? I'm sure I'll find out. Force me to complete, like, both Pits of 100 Trials, though, would be a power move for sure. We're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that'll take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. I found the back cover for my Wiimote. It was, right where the batteries were, originally. Which in hindsight I should have anticipated. Under the looming shadow of the void, the world slowly drifted toward demise. But not all hope was lost. 2 pure hearts had yet to be found. Would our daring heroes find them, or was the world doomed to be devoured? Mario, Peach, and Bowser ventured through the next door to find out. Samurai Showdown. Now, I've been told that this chapter is where it apparently gets good, so let's find out. Look at that. The void, it's enormous here, much bigger than it is in Flipside. This dimension must be very close to destruction. We better hurry. We have a pure heart to find. These are spider lilies. They are believed to grow where blood has been shed, if memory serves. To King Sammer's palace. I yield. I am shamed. Ah, so you run, coward. You disgrace your family's honor. Another unworthy opponent. When will this hero of legend appear? Time is running out, and still he refuses to show his face. You stop now. You wear the clothes of a crazy. You must be if you mean to challenge me. His name is Mario. He's not here to challenge you. Aha, so it begins, challenger. I am known as Jade Blooper, guardian of the first gate. Prepare for game over. Hacha! Round 1, fight. No more, I beg you. Your power is great, challenger. Your skills are impressive. So the hero of legend has finally revealed himself. You may go to the next gate. What next gate? What is going on here? Oh, splendid. Oh, what a performance. And what exotic garb you drape yourself in, challenger. What a rousing spectacle of martial artistry. Sorry, but who are you? Insolence. Show respect, dog. You stand before King Sammer, ruler of the Samurais. I'm a fox, actually. Your unusual fighting style brings me amusement to no end. As reward for your victory, I shall allow you a glimpse of my treasure. Behold. Yoink, runs. That's a pure heart. Indeed, it is the pride of the kingdom. If you desire it, prove your worth by defeating my loyal vassals in a tournament. Your vassals, King Sammer? In our kingdom, there is a legend that has been passed down through generations. When a great hole appears in the sky, the world will soon be devoured. The tempest in the sky grows larger by the day. It must be stopped. But the legend goes on, and so I shall continue a very dramatic reading. Ahem. Only one thing can stop the void. The great hero must be given the pure heart. Vassals to me. Acha. Hail Sammer. 100 strong. These are my vassals. Should you beat them all, you will prove that you are the true hero. Yes, I shall reward you with the pure heart if you can best my other 99 samurais. Begone, samurais, and move to your tournament positions. Acha! I'm sure I'll be on the edge of my throne throughout this thrilling tournament. I will await your arrival at the palace. The tournament has begun. Let skill decide. So the king will give us a pure heart if we beat the other 99 samurais. We better get started. We have a lot of fighting to do. You must defeat the other 99 samurais to earn the pure heart. I see you. Look upon hill with eyes, keeper of the second gate. You run along the earth attacking immobile blocks, and I see you. You leap above deep pits, dodging wandering beasts, and I watch you. Soon you will fall in battle by my merciless hand, and I laugh at you. Right in the eye. You did not wither beneath my cold and flinching stare, and so I am defeated. But defeat and victory are equally meaningless to one such as I. I will remain in the distance, waiting without remorse and always watching. I really hope this isn't actually like 100 of this in a row. An opponent blows in. My name floats like an ill wind, for I am Puffing Fist, guardian of the third gate. I can send the mighty opponent to his doom with a single strike. Pwang! No, it is you who has dealt the pwanging. I have failed the ancient pwang traditions. My strikes lack puff. I must go and train at the Cloud Temple. I will use my remaining vacation days. Is this actually 100 duels in a row? Soon, challenger, you will scream in terror at the name of Flightless Bird, for I am squatting Birdo, ever-hunkering guardian of the fourth gate. Now you will know the fury of the most deadly fighting style, Birdo Squat. Squawk. The egg of my defeat burns hot on my face. I bow to your skill. Birdo be with you, challenger. Like I'm actually asking, is this 100 duels in a row? Tell me, challenger, have you ever tried to catch a jumping fish with your bare hands? Yes. You will know the frustration soon, for I am Leaping Cheap, keeper of the fifth gate. The cheap... Go ahead, find out. I'm asking a question. Whatever. The Cheap soars in the air and out and strikes his prey like a fishy tsunami. But that's so cheap. Your skill is strong. If only my flying fishy friends had looked to my aid when I called out for them. Before we must fight, consider this haiku. A challenger comes under the darkening sky, wiggity wiggle. Master Wiggler wiggles in defense of the sixth gate, wiggle wiggle wiggle. Igor. Before you leave, contemplate this haiku. The challenger came, now my face wiggles in pain, wiggle wiggle wig. Wiggle on, warrior, wiggle on. Stumpao, I am Shu of Karibo. I protect the seventh gate, Stumpao. Some try to tiptoe past me like little fancy slippers. I stalk them, Stumpao. Shu stomps all, Stumpao. Shu of Karibo will tread on you, Stumpao. Stumpao. Stumpao, I am stomped. You crush out my Stumpao. You boot Shu, Stumpao. If this gets to like, let's say 20, I might actually just quit this game. You fry now. I am Guy Who Fry, master of dripping magma punch, guard of the 8th gate. I see your eyes burn with purpose. Will I torch you today? Or will your burning desire to win extinguish me? I say you fry now. It's beyond 20. Though I don't know if I agree. It is I who fry today. I am like a sad, pale, discarded grease. Go now and fry samurais in memory of guy who fried. Yeah. The shrill shriek of the screaming mantis paralyzes you at Gate 9. You are motionless with fear. Now I prey on your face. Yeah. Screaming Mantis's throat grows hoarse. Screaming Mantis requires a lozenge. And so you come at last, like a young bloom poking through an early spring snow. I am called Koopa in winter. I wait immobile by the 10th gate. The plant that blooms early freezes and perishes, and so too shall you. Oh no, I'm dead. And this is the part of the game that's supposed to be the fun part. Anyway. Once I started this part, you said that at every part so far. Like, I'm trying not to be unjustly mean to this game. But I really feel like this game has exactly one joke, and that one joke is let's try her patience as much as we possibly can. Blah blah blah, make a pipe. Sorry, I'm being quiet. I shouldn't be quiet. Just, I'm sincerely not very impressed with the game right now. Like, there's doing a little trolling, that's fine. And then there's, what if we just deliberately made something that wasn't fun? Not saving before going through the chapter door, that's on me, but like... This whole sequence just isn't my brand of humor. Alright, I'm gonna go back to Flipside, I'm going to save my game, I'm going to stock up on curatives, because I presume it goes for the entire 100 duels. Which makes Marilyn going, hey, sorry, but you're gonna have to do 100 duels. You know, make more sense. It's not the full 100. It's something. Blah blah blah, who cares? Is there a skip cutscene button? I don't think there is.
Yeah. Me?
I feel like every game that has cutscenes should have a skip cutscene button. Like, not even in a lol ADHD Fox sense, I mean in a sense of like... Maybe you're doing a replay, maybe you're doing a run back after, you know, game overing. And maybe you don't want to sit through this again. I'm just mashing the advanced text button. So fun fact, the game lagged a little bit when spawning them all in, but it was fine once they were all in. Obviously I don't know what's going on under the hood of Paper Mario specifically. But that's actually a thing that's just like a generic thing in games, where instantiating an object that is causing it to come into existence is a relatively expensive operation. Compared to, like, just using it once you've already got it. The proper practice for a situation like that, rather than spawning them all in at once, which causes a lag spike, is to, in the background, instantiate them all essentially during downtime, where the performance hit will be negligible because it doesn't cause enough of a performance hit to cause lag. Like, you like load the object, like the game object, in the background, and then you simply make it visible at the right time, because it's already been loaded. You can also do something very similar if you're spawning waves of enemies, or if your enemies are like shooting projectiles. Rather than creating and destroying them as they appear and disappear, create them in batches, and recycle them. Like if I'm an enemy and I shoot like a bow and arrow, I might just have an arrow that is like spawned with me, and I shoot it at you, and if it misses and it despawns, it hasn't actually despawned, it's just been like made invisible and like gone back to me. And that's better performance than creating and destroying an arrow every time I do something. Or like, even if it isn't my arrow, maybe like whenever I do an attack, it looks into like a pool of like unused arrows that have been spawned already. And if there's one spare, it just takes ownership of it. And if there isn't, then it spawns a new one. So it only ends up making as many arrows as it needs for however many enemies are nearby. It's like if you got 7 guys like spamming shots at you, or if you've got like one guy doing like, a 5-arrow multi-shot, like they create the arrows that they need. But then you keep those arrows around instead of like destroying them. I don't think I have many healing items. I have no healing items. I thought I had more than 0. These guys drop items? Presumably not. I should be a little bit more careful so that I don't wipe again. Because if I do, I'm done playing Super Paper Mario for the night, I can tell you that much. I'm a fairly patient person, I like to think, but it's not without limit. You thought I want to read my healing items? I thought that I had some. I was clearly mistaken. If this were Mario Odyssey, I could use a Peach amiibo to spawn in a healing item. But it's not, so I can't. You know, if I wipe again and I have to do this again, I'll probably just do it off stream. Alternately, I'll find another game to play, depending on how I feel. Like, right this very second, I'm not in a very charitable mood towards this game, so... I don't want to make any decisions right now, not decisions that matter. Also, I know that I'm skipping the dialogue, but this game has kind of lost my willing to put up with it privileges for now. I can just pull up a script and, like, read the lines out later. That seemed vaguely like plot. Oh, this one's small, and it's got a real sword. I think leveling up heals me, so that might be like a convenient way to get out of this. I'm I'm pretty sure if you leave the arena, you disqualify yourself. Down 20. And he does 3 points of contact. Damage. Okay, there's 25 minutes of stream left. I'm just gonna play Noita. Like, if I'm going to keep playing Super Paper Mario, it has to not be tonight, I'm sorry. Let me just switch the stream category. Like maybe I'll have more patience next week. But I'm sorry, I am out of patience for today. For that joke in particular. There we go. Noita, fun game. It appears to be nighttime in Noita Land. I have bombs and bouncing blasts. Also Brian. Don't quote me on this, but I think Brian is actually a little bit better for dealing with toxic waste. Because like both water and brine burn toxic waste into like water. But I think brine does it faster. I might be just hallucinating things, who knows. I'll probably swap it out for water once I get the opportunity. Oh, was that Ambrosia? That was Ambrosia. Oh, that sucks. Getting a flask full of Ambrosia is really, really nice, especially early on. That said, I can simply remember that there is a puddle of it there, and come back later. As I don't need a flask full to make efficient usage of it. I simply need a sample. It's kind of funny, a lot of people think of Noita as like an infuriating game. And to an extent it is, but like... to put it as diplomatically as possible, it's a kind of infuriating that I've got patience for right now. Seems like there's a gentleman throwing dynamite in there. However, I don't think he can see me, so I can't bait him into blasting it open for me. The primary spell that I started with here, this Bouncing Burst, is actually a deceptively powerful spell in the late game. In the early game, though, it's not actually that good. It's affected by physics in a way that makes it slightly tricky to aim. Oh, I just realized you can't see my cursor, hold on. Game Reader's cursor, there we go. Not incredibly necessary for like the viewing experience, but I think it elevates it just a little. Yeah, fun fact, flame mages, react to water as if it were acid. Ooh, a chest. That is worth spending a bomb on. That was very worth spending a bomb on. And there's a shop over here. That's rare. Concentrated light may be worth picking up, especially this early. I think I'll keep looking for wands, though. Concentrated light is actually a spell that I just like. In terms of, like, actual, like, utility. Like, what the spell does, it's not great. It's a little bit expensive. Like, for the amount of damage that it does. But, like, aesthetically, I really like that spell. It's also got... Oh, hello. This changes things. I will purchase blood, and I will purchase triplicate bolts. And I'll put another bomb here, because I see a wand up there, as evidenced by the golden streaks coming off of it. This one has fireballs on it. This is a flask full of worm pheromone. Nothing to write home about, but... I can make use of these. Okay, that's where I started. My health is at a little bit below half. My money is well above the power that I usually shoot for. Whenever I start a run, I try not to move on from the mines until I've picked up at least 400 gold, ideally 500 or more. So being up to like 1300 plus is really, really nice. Granted, that was almost entirely down to a really lucky chest spawn. This is a decent wand. Not incredible, but energy orb is actually really nice to get this early on when the materials that the stages are made out of are this soft. The mana charge speed on it is great. The cast time and reload speed are not great, but they don't have to be when there's only like one spell on the wand. That's not true. The cast time and reload speed aren't great, but that's not a big deal when I don't need to cast a bunch of spells in a row. Which at present I don't. There's going to be an emerald tablet over here. There are various uses for that, but the main one that I'm going to use it for is chucking it at people's faces. This was a poor example, but it deals fairly beefy contact damage, and more importantly counts as an environmental kill. And environmental kills yield double rewards. My health is getting low, but it's... never mind. I was gonna say it's not at my concern level, now it's at my concern level. Oh, chainsaw, spectacular. And teleport bolt, and spark bolt, and sea of water. There's a bunch of secret tools that might help me later. Crit plus is nice. Did I not go back to get the ambrosia? No. This isn't a good time to get it. I'll go back and get it if I make it all the way to the bottom of the mountain and then come back up. Critical hit plus, I think, gives me a flat 15% critical hit chance. Baseline in this game is 0. Spark Bolt, that'd be like a 1 in 5. Crits in this game do quintuple damage. So this is nice, but it's nothing that really changes your gameplay, and it's not really reliable. So I'm going to actually reshuffle, and I'm going to get no more shuffle. So now wands that pick their spells at random get them in a fixed sequence, which makes them substantially better. In particular, I'm going to put Teleport Bolt on this wand. The charge speed isn't incredible, but it's early game. I'm not exactly spoiled for choice. Going into the coal pits, coal mines, I don't need a bomb, that's overkill. The chainsaw would work, but honestly, the energy orb is my best option. No, this would be really nice if I had, like, some flavor of multicast, but I don't. But that's fine. I got everything I need for now. Energy Orb is nice because it destroys coal veins without destroying gold. So I can kind of just blast my way towards any gold that I spot in the walls. As well as just sort of freely navigate the world without respect for the level generation. It also does a moderate chunk of damage, and that's a multicast, and this wand is actually really good. Recharge time isn't incredible. But it's kind of a, situation where it's like, for what I've got, pretty nice. This is a bad situation. Get that poison off of me. There went about half my life. All things considered, could have gone worse. Try to salvage some money out of it. I'm not incredibly invested in living, so if I wipe, I wipe. I don't have it on this save file, because I haven't done it since replacing my computer. But I did have the crown and the amulet at one point, so I kind of satisfied my desire to be powerful and strong. Oh, not really? Have a good rest. Yeah, have a good rest. Now we're talking. There we go. Concentration to, reduce spread to offset the scatter. And this is triple scatter, so it's going to grab the next 3 spells that it sees, except there is no 3rd spell. So it's going to wrap around to the beginning and pick a chainsaw, which has negative cast speed and, negative cast delay and negative recharge time. So I'm double dipping on that stat modifier and making the wand overall fire much faster. And explosion immunity is incredible. Just frankly incredible. I will keep a Blood Mist as a memento, and toss everything else on the ground. I have nothing that serves better as a digging or fighting wand compared to this. I'll grab Electric Charge because it's a secret tool that'll help me later. And, oh hey, wand. Decent stats. Smells something to write home about. At least not yet. Rock is actually remarkably powerful when combined with homing. another one with really decent stats. Stat-wise, this is probably one of the better ones I've got. Except for this ridiculous charge speed. That's a Cold Mage. I do not want him to hit me. That's fine though, because he didn't. For some reason I cannot aim. Oh, Levitation. Oh. This guy shoots glue. By himself, not that big of a problem. Oh, I see a chest. Not gonna bother with that. These stats are mediocre for stage 3, and the spell on it is not something I particularly care to preserve. Saw Blades are nice early game, but the inherent ability to self-harm makes them not incredible in most scenarios. The main benefit of using them is that they make enemies drop a lot of extra blood because they deal slice damage instead of projectile damage. But I'm not really running Vampirism, so not a perk I particularly care about at this point in time. That is a propane tank and will explode if it gets damaged, which I don't want to happen. My health is getting concerningly low, so I should attempt to, even if, oh no. I was gonna say attempt to, even if I don't get, go through it right away, I should at least attempt to open a path to a Holy Mountain portal. My health is high enough that I feel confident taking one hit. This wand is incredible, and I'm taking it home with me. I'm leaving to the Holy Mountain. Let's go. This is fine. If that grenade had hit me, I'd be dead. Luckily it didn't, so I'm not. Let's see. Always cast... I think that's not rotate towards, is it? Auto-aim. Not incredible. Oh, this is potentially very, very good. I'm gonna buy this just for the spells on it. Decent wand. Lightning Bolt is really nice for where I'm going. I won't actually need Electric Charge with that. Exploding Corpses would be really nice. Except it kind of has overlap with Explosion Immunity. It is very nice, but I think I'm not going to bother with it. Phasing is actually very strong. Attract Cold is nice, but phasing is survivability. And being this fragile, survivability is kind of at a bit of a premium. So this one is fun because it's got always cast explosive projectile on it. So anything that comes out of this is extra dangerous. What I'd really like to have is a Spark Bolt with Trigger. Oh, that is... Wait, no, I'm immune to explosions. Alright. I might catch fire, but that's fine. Let's see. I want to keep this one around for the recharge speed. So for now, I'll put Teleport Bolt on it. This one has decent stats. One on bottom is actually better. Put this here, take this off, take this off. This off, take this off. Take this off. The chassis on this one isn't incredible, mostly because... No, wait, I misread that. Recharge time is still pretty low, though. Or rather, the number is big, which makes it bad. Normally, it'd be nice because it's non-shuffle. But I've got no shuffle, so... And I'll leave this here because an empty wand isn't really worth keeping around. You don't need to get rid of spells in your inventory anymore, because you can just drop them even if, I'm actually in danger. I'm probably going to die here, and it's going to be entirely my fault. I forgot about how many, explosive things there were around. No, wait, I'm immune to explosions. Oh no, snipers. And I froze to death. Oh well, this is fine. And actually conveniently timed, because it's time to call stream for the night. Thank you so much for showing up, I really appreciated it each and every time. Sorry for getting a little bit tilted, it happens sometimes. Next scheduled stream is tomorrow, the game is Hollow Knight. I will ruminate on my feelings and decide whether or not next Sunday is going to be Super Paper Mario again. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night.